Preparing a child for a loss, especially the loss of someone very close to them, is one of the biggest challenges that a family will ever face. It's one reason why we call our booklet as big as it gets, because it is as big as it gets. Of course, every family is individual and unique and will need to approach talking about this stuff in individual ways, depending on the ages of their children, the sort of levels of their understanding, and the way in which the family is put together. All of our ideas, everything that we suggest, comes from our experience of helping hundreds of families who are facing this sort of challenge. So the first one is about taking a breath and thinking about what is happening. That's about who is ill, because your approach may be slightly different if it's a mum or a dad or a brother or a sister, or if it's a grandparent who's maybe rarely seen, or a school teacher or something like that. It's thinking about the nature of the child's relationship with that person. Is it somebody that they rely on an awful lot? Is it somebody who's always there? Or is it somebody that they see more rarely? It depends an awful lot about children's level of understanding as well as their age. You would obviously have a different conversation with a teenager than you would with a 4-year-old. But it's still really important that either way that they're given the sort of information at their level of understanding. Also depends, of course, on what else is going on in life at the moment. Is it also start of a school year, somebody doing exams, somebody else poorly, the dog being ill? Second thing we would ask people to think about would be about balancing hope and honesty. There needs to be an open and honest conversation, if that's at all possible, about what's going on. Children have extraordinary antennae for knowing that something huge is affecting the family, even if everybody is putting on their best, faces of coping and getting by. Children will know, and it makes them feel less safe, less secure if people aren't including them. But it's also balancing hope for children, especially little ones. It's very hard to actually hold on to the information that, say, a mum or a dad is going to die for a long time. That actually puts an awful lot of mental pressure on them. So it's about adding pieces of the jigsaw until you build a picture, a full picture. Obviously, for a teenager, they would want to be included and have as much honest and open conversation about this as much as possible. But for little ones, it's little pieces. The doctors are doing all they can to make mum better, but this illness, called and then named the illness, it might be cancer, it might be multiple sclerosis or whatever. This illness is a really tricky illness for the doctors to work with. And then you add another piece. Well, the doctors have tried lots and lots of things, but at the moment nothing much is working, and that means that mum is becoming more ill, etc. We sometimes talk about it as getting the message a little bit darker. Number 3 would be preparing for an emotional roller coaster. That's all of you, obviously the person who is ill, as well as the children and as well as the people who are supporting the children. This is tough, tough stuff. It also can sometimes reveal this way in which children can grieve, where sometimes they are full of emotion and grief and tears and distress, and then the next minute will be asking for a biscuit or asking to go on a tablet or an iPhone or something, or watch the telly. It's a very natural response from children, and sometimes people can be a bit shocked by saying, I told her that mum was really, really ill and we expected her to stay in hospital, and they said, can I have a piece of cake? But that is the most natural thing. But also that everybody's emotions, including the people who are supporting, will be very much on edge, very raw, very up and down. And just explain that to the children. Yes, I know I snapped at you, but that's because I'm so worried about mummy. Yes, I know everybody is, short of fused at the moment. That's because we're worried about daddy. When it gets to the next stage and you're starting to prepare maybe for the worst possible bit of news and preparing for the change, that'll depend on, again, children's ages and stages, but also about helping them begin to understand what life and death means and what actually is likely to be involved. So it's beginning to change that conversation to say, actually, even the best help that the doctors could do, mum's body really could not fight this illness. many people survive. For mum, it's not going to be true. And in fact, we are expecting that mum will die in the next few days. So it's about having that conversation so the children have a chance to process it and maybe say final goodbyes. Last thing we would say is about for people who maybe have a chance to do something that helps the children look to the future after somebody has died. And that's maybe putting some things in place now. That's maybe talking about openly about who will be there for the children. Yes, it is sad, mummy is going to die, but we will still be here, we will still live in this house, you will still go to that school. Or if changes are necessary, giving the children enough information so that they can begin to prepare for this massive change. For the adult who is ill or for the people around, it's also about things like maybe writing cards for the future or thinking about little presents for the future. Nothing that builds up too much expectations of people having to live up to what's written. But messages from somebody who has died can be hugely important. What we're talking about in all of this is about giving children the strength and the tools to actually go through something which is enormous. But we're helping them live with this big thing and live beyond it and through it and to a future which will be altered but will still be rich and fulfilled. If anybody would like to talk this through, they can call the Winston's Wish Helpline. It's a free number. We're open every day between 9 and 5, and the number is 080 88 020 021. There's also a website called Plan If, and that's got lots of resources for anybody thinking about the sort of things to put in place before a parent dies.